I was seeing the room actually. See if the switch is.
Tests. Tests.
Yeah, it's going on the other one.
Just a moment.
I gotta go upstairs because.
Yeah, yeah.
I forgot.
You can go. I'm going to check.
Good morning. First of all, I would like to express my gratitude to Triestino Mariniello for proposing this initiative and to my colleague Cecilia Strada for having made herself available to organize the event. I want to thank all of you for deciding to participate and bring this initiative to life. Because we are grateful because the image that arrive daily from Gaza are terrible and speak of violence, depicting a genocide broadcast live on social media. And that is rollingly accustoming the European society to hold this barbarity. I don't want to take time away from this debate, but I'd like to reiterate our support, my support and support of my party for the Palestinian cause, and this support will always be there, as it has been during this month of work here in Brussels. However, it is right that everyone should be aware that since we have been here, the European Union has found ways to vote on resolutions concerning everything. We voted 5 times about Georgia, just because the electoral results doesn't not place the parliamentary majority. But never once have we had the opportunity to vote on a resolution addressing what is happening in Gaza. This gives you an idea of the atmosphere within these walls and of the hypocrisy that reigns in this institution, who talk grandly about human rights, about democracy, while rushing to Israel to shake hands to Netanyahu or opening doors to pro-Zionist lobbyists. When Mariniello proposed me that I hosted this debate with Cecilia, I had no doubts. Not only because I strongly believe that survival of Palestinian people is at stake, but because I firmly believe that the future of international law and the possibility of imagining a world where relations between states are based not on dominance, on violence, but on rules and diplomacy, and it depends on Gaza. But the West double standard is the primary enemy in this moment of this possibility. Because what European Union countries are doing, the total support for the action of the Israeli government, the impunity in the face of the genocide of Palestine. And I think all of this risk being the tombstone of all goods, all the good that was attempted after the end of the Second World War. And I want to end because I think the European people knows what is happening in Gaza and that it's right to stand with Palestinian people. On Saturday, during our huge rally in Rome for the peace and against rearm EU, there were a lot of Italians that marched also for Palestine with Palestinian flag, for example. And during his speech, the economist Sachs, during his speech on the stage, said, and I want to end with this: peace can also to Middle East. Let's bring Palestine into United Nations, and peace will come. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Danilo, and thank you everyone for being here today. Ahlan wa sahlan in Brussels. I'm very grateful to have the possibility to hear from you today, and I would like also to say hello and thanks for the presence here. Our colleagues Marta Temido from the Socialists and Democrats and Honorable Lynn Boylan, she's the chair of the delegation for the relation with Palestine. and much appreciated your presence here today. And I don't want to speak, actually. I'm here to listen today. Just a few words. On March the 23rd, at least 15 Palestinians, paramedics and first responders were brutally killed. Truth emerged thanks to a 7-minute video. It was a brutal massacre, which can unquestionably labeled as a war crime. Problem is that war crimes have become the new normal here. And what is Europe doing? Basically, nothing. We are here today, if you're asking why we are here today, is because we cannot tolerate anymore that Europe goes on like business as usual, while war crimes are committed on a daily basis. While act of genocide, according to the 1948 Convention on Genocide, we've been witnessing 1 year of discussion over words. Someone calls it genocide, someone denies and gets very upset when we call this genocide. But actually, if we check the convention, 1948 Convention on Genocide, we can clearly see that these are acts of genocide, and it's not acceptable. What is at stake here is not only the life of the Palestinian population. I think at stake is also the credibility of Europe, the reputation of Europe, and the system we are living in. Because we are, as Danilo was recalling before, we are really drowning in our double standards. We are rightly so condemning every war crime by Putin. Rightly so, we are providing any kind of support to Ukraine on a monthly basis. Rightly so. But we are not able to do the same for the Palestinian people. We are not able to do the same, to ask the same protection of the international humanitarian law when we come to the situation in Palestine. Europe needs to act. I myself, along with a lot of other colleagues, some of them are in this room today, we have been asking repeatedly since last July when our mandate started. We have, I think, basically on a weekly basis, we have been asking for the suspension of the agreement with Israel, for a total embargo on the weapons to Israel, for a ban on trade with the colonies, for the respect of international humanitarian law, for free access of humanitarian aid to Gaza, to stop violence from the settlers. What is Europe doing is basically doing nothing. And we are not even able to protect our institutions like the International Court of Justice or the International Criminal Court, that are the pillars of our system. And we are not even able to, as we repeatedly been asking the Commission, to activate the blocking statute in order to protect the International Criminal Court. But this is not happening yet. And so I really want to thank all of you for giving us today the possibility to hear from your voices what is going on, what needs to be done, and what could be done, what should be done. So thank you very much for being here today. We are in listening mode here today, but promise we will not stay silent, and we will go on trying to do everything we can to address the situation. Really, you can count on us, and thank you very much for providing us with your presence today and with your precious insight about the situation. So thank you very much, and I will gladly give the floor to Professor Triestino Mariniello, who will share.
Thank you very much. So many thanks, first of all, to the members of the European Parliament, Danilo, Della Valle and Cecilia Strada, and their assistants for hosting and supporting the organization of this event. Thanks to everyone who is here today. Thanks to our panelists for their participation, but most importantly, thanks to our panelists for the work, the valuable work that their organization do. In particular, Palestinian Civil Society Organization here represented the Palestinian Center for Human Rights and Mezan Center for Human Rights for decades have been documenting the most serious violation of international law. Without their work, there would have never been, just to give an example, any open investigation before the International Criminal Court. These organizations have paid a very high price for their daily activities. Their premises in Gaza have been destroyed or damaged. Staff members of the Palestinian Center for Human Rights has been killed during the ongoing military operation. Dana Yagi, 27 years old, has been killed with 39 members of her family. Noor Abu al-Nur, 30 years old, has been killed with 7 members of her family, including her daughter of 2 years old. Ihab Faisal, 33 years old, was killed with his wife and his 2 children, Rim, 6 years old, and Najima, 3 years old. Another PCHR staff has been detained and tortured. Before giving the floor to our speakers, just a few words why we are here today about the context in Gaza as well. The world is witnessing today the most devastating effects of Israel's ongoing aggression against Palestinians in Gaza. The humanitarian catastrophe has reached unprecedented levels with widespread destruction, forced displacement, and over at least 60,000 Palestinians killed in the Strip. With the total impunity, Israel is continuing to carry out intentional attacks on hospitals, schools, refugee camps, along with the deliberate starvation of civilians. On March 18, Israel resumed its war of destruction of what remains of the almost entirely devastated Gaza Strip. Despite findings of the International Court of Justice, finding on 3 different occasions that it's plausible that Israel is committing genocide in the Gaza Strip, and despite the arrest warrants of the International Criminal Court against Netanyahu and Gallant for war crimes and crimes against humanity, Israel is still enjoying impunity and is still, has just been told by the MPs, getting the support of many states and from the European Union institutions, which refuse so far to condemn serious violation of international law in Gaza. The EU High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy has recently stressed her support to Israel, emphasizing that the EU and Israel are very good partners. A few days ago, members of the European Commission and of the European Parliament, including a Vice President, have met representatives of Israel far-right organization that publicly advocates for ethnic cleansing in Gaza and for the settlements in the West Bank, which I would like to remind everyone are not only unlawful under international law, but also are a war crime in the statute of the International Criminal Court. European Union institutions have championed the fight against impunity, accountability mechanism for in other contexts, for instance, in relation to the situation in Ukraine, even proposing the establishment of a special tribunal dealing with the crime of aggression, but at the same time has not done the same when it comes to the situation in Palestine. The EU has added the ratification of the statute of the International Criminal Court as a condition to Ukraine for becoming a EU member state. Where is the same commitment to international justice shown against Russia when one of the EU state parties, like Hungary, decides to withdraw from the statute of the International Criminal Court and welcomes an individual subject to an arrest warrant for war crimes and crimes against humanity? It's also concerning that instead of declaring their full respect and support to international law instruments, some EU state parties are placing into question their legal obligation under the Rome Statute. Hungary has welcomed Netanyahu, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of France, the Belgian Prime Minister, Italian ministers, and the German Prime Minister have stressed that Netanyahu will not be arrested in their countries. These political reactions clearly discriminate among victims of the most serious crimes. So Palestinians, already labeled as human animals by the Israeli Authority and already subject to dehumanization and to an institutional system of discrimination, do not deserve, according to these countries, to any form of justice. We would have expected EU institutions and its state parties to support the court, particularly in a historical time when it is subject to threats by states that have systematically opposed to the investigation in Palestine. Of course, I'm referring in particular to the decision of the Trump administration to impose sanctions on the ICC staff. The title of today's event refers to the fight for international justice. We believe that impunity constitutes a fertile soil for Israeli authorities' commission of the most serious crime. And the issue of arrest warrants against Netanyahu and Gallant, once again, is a fundamental step, in our view, to put an end to such impunity in a context which is one of the most documented situations for the commission of international crimes. So we are here to say that the EU must take an unequivocal stand against state parties' efforts to undermine the binding force of judicial decisions. It must demand full compliance with the ICC judges' ICC rulings, including the legal obligation to arrest and transfer the Israeli Prime Minister. International justice is not a selective privilege. Like humanitarian organizations still in Gaza, like Palestinian civil society organization, like the International Court of Justice, international justice is one of the final obstacle against barbarism. Without international justice, the world would descend into a lawless chaos. Those who believe states' attacks on the ICC will only harm its role in Palestine are dangerously naive. This is not about one specific context. It's an assault on the very foundation of international law. If the European Union hesitates now, it doesn't merely fail Palestine. It abandons the rule of law itself. So the question facing EU institutions and their member states is stark. Are you willing to sacrifice the credibility and legitimacy of the entire international legal system to protect your allies? Today, so we are here, and I conclude, to demand urgent action to confront Israel's grave violation of international law, to call for a unified commitment to international justice and accountability. We are here to urge European Union institutions demanding that Israel puts immediately an end to its aggression and demanding that the Israeli authorities are held accountable. As human rights activists, scholars, legal experts, we are here to propose concrete ways to challenge Israel's impunity and discuss the critical role of the European Union in halting this ongoing exterminatory violence, upholding international law, and enforcing justice on the global stage. And now I have the privilege to give the floor to Raji Sourani, director and founder of the Palestinian Center for Human Rights in Gaza and legal representative of Gaza victims before the International Criminal Court. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Triestino. Many think that October 7th was the day of the beginning of the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, which is absolutely wrong. In the short version, we have 57 years of criminal belligerent occupation, and in the long version, we have 77 years of criminality and Nakba of Palestine, since Palestinians have been cracked down on and dispersed all over the globe. The situation just before October 7th, how it was. In simple words, in Gaza, there was a blockade, 17 years, suffocated the people of Gaza, socially, economically, and 7 wars during that has been launched, 2008, 9, 12, 14, 17, 21, 22, 23. The percent of unemployment was 64%, those who are under poverty line 90%, and those who depend on UNRWA, World Food Program, other charities, on food was 85%. Gaza has the highest percent of university graduates on earth, skilled working class, strong business community, and they turned us to be a nation of beggars, waiting Europeans, to dump some food and medicine, doing clinic or Beaver Road. In Jerusalem, ethnic cleansing, Judaization, and Sheikh Jarrah was the bold example, and nobody, paid any attention for it. Jerusalem de facto ruled out for the Israelis. In the West Bank, settlements vertically, horizontally are there. New settlements are built. bypass road, ghettoizing the entire villages, camps, and cities of the West Bank, and give leverage and expansion and annexation to the settlements in the West Bank with Israel. North of the West Bank disconnected from the south. Jerusalem disconnected from the rest. The entire West Bank and Jerusalem disconnected from Gaza. 600 plus blocks on the roads were initiated, making movement rather mission impossible. The numbers of killings, injuries, imprisonment, endless. All the practices of Israel, of torture and otherwise, endless. Universal jurisdiction has been addressed in many European countries. Unfortunately, we were blocked, not legally, but through legislation enacted after we began our activities to provide Israel with more immunity. After that, we resorted to ICC with all hurdles and obstacles, which was put intentionally. We overcome it and we became member in the ICC, Rome Statute and ICC. And we began from January 2015, the work. What had happened? We didn't move anywhere. And in 2017, His Excellency President Trump, for the first time ever, issued a presidential decree against ICC prosecutors, judges, who try to help in bringing to accountability any of the Americans or the Israelis or their allies. While the independence of ICC undermined, nobody protested at the time among the states. Well, October 7th happened, and after 3 days, the President of Israel, the Prime Minister, and the Minister of Defense said, read my lips. The President said, no innocents in Gaza, Hamas or civilians, all of them are complicit partner. We will get them all. Netanyahu said, Gazans should leave Gaza. Where to? Either to the skies or to Sinai. On other notice, the Minister of Defense said, Gazans are human animals. We are human animals. And there will be no water, no food, no fuel, and no electricity. Usually in the genocide, you can prove simply the practice, but the intent is mission impossible. Here Israel saying, we are going to do that. We will do that. And this supported by another 840 statements. So no doubt about that. How Europe reacted, the fantastic civilized Europe of rule of law. Israel entitled for the right of self-defense. Shame on them. Criminal, belligerent occupation who do war crime, crime against humanity, persecution, ethnic cleansing. Not only that, but they do as well genocide publicly, streamed live at the real time, Israel to have the right of self-defense. Shame on them. Europe legitimize not only war crimes, crimes against humanity, persecution, but also genocide. Maybe they said that was very early, really, to make judgment on genocide. But this genocide broadcasted in live stream 18 months. You don't need a Triestino or Raji or Issam or Kate. You don't need us. You just watch it. No, I mean, they have the right of self-defense. International law, international humanitarian law, to whom is it? Is it for intellect, for academic, to be discussed here, or for civilians to feel it on their skin? What's the international law and the international humanitarian law? This is the creme de la creme of the human experience after the Second World War. We didn't invent it as the Palestinians, but rightly we do have the right to use it as human beings. Civilians should enjoy the protection of international law, and they should feel it as all other humans. In Ukraine, Russia invaded and occupied it. Europe revolted, US revolted. How shame they do that. Ukrainians have the right of self-determination. They have the right to resist the occupation. Europe and US called upon all free Europeans and Americans to take arms and go and defend Ukraine against the Russian occupation. Russia was sanctioned with 7 waves of severe sanctions, unprecedented ones. And the NATO said, we will support them, even militarily. ICC activated, ICJ activated. We were so happy that this awakeness for international law and international humanitarian law, and to use effectively the legal tools. And we said soon they will realize what's happening in Palestine, and they will revert to that. Unfortunately, selectivity and politicization of international law is there. And with the more killing, with the more destruction, with the more famine, with the more displacement for Gazans, unfortunately, no reaction. We were calling long time ago to activate the association agreement, Article 1, between Europe and Israel. And after 18 months of live stream genocide, European foreign ministers discuss with His Excellency, the Israeli foreign minister, this, how they keep cooperation with them, and how to keep Israel part of the Arab zone, how to keep it part of academic cooperation, how to keep the twinning between the cities, how they facilitate, exporting 64% of the Israeli trade tax exempted to Europe, etc. This is the shame. We are not asking political favor. We are not asking human favor. We have shared values. We have law. We want to see the law in practice. That's all what I need, all what we need. Article 1 of the Fourth Geneva Convention says high contracting parties should ensure the de jure applicability of the convention. Any is doing that. Any try to ensure, I mean, the de jure applicability and the protection of Palestinian civilians in the occupied territories. The ICC issued 2 warrants. The most important 5 countries in Europe say, well, this is very intellectual opinion. We are not going to be abide with it. So don't worry about it, Bibi. You are our friend and you are most welcome anytime. Shame on them. Shame. ICJ, even with food, with the humanitarian aid, stated in simple words, 3 provisional measures decisions in January, February, April. You have to allow that through Rafah. Who cares? I mean, they assuming ICJ do have army and law enforcement agency, and they are going to implement it. Where are you, the states? So, selectivity, politicization, it's not going there. We are investing all our life in trying to promote rule of law, human rights, democracy, at that part of the world. And we made sure that we use all the proper legal tools vis-a-vis this rule of jungle. But it seems that nobody wants to pay attention for that. Very ugly, bad message conveyed to that part of the world. You have to enjoy the rule of jungle. It's not for you. In old Rome, there was law for masters, not for the slaves. Europe think we are the slaves of the 21st century. Never will be. We are human, we are equal, we are entitled for dignity and justice, both. What's going on evil? How many Europe want to see to be killed more? We have already 18,000 children, 14,000 women, 2 million displaced, famine all over Gaza, 90% of Gaza erased and destroyed, and 2 million people waiting death, despair, and forcible transfer. Is that our destiny? And even yesterday, His Excellency President Trump says, we will make it Rivera. We have to get these Gazans, somewhere out. We cannot be good victims for anybody on earth. We have no right to be a good victim. We don't deserve to be the stones of the valley if we are good victims for genociders. We will resist. That's our right and our obligation till the last breath. They want to abandon us, to feel we are despair, we are losing hope in our self-determination, in our independence, in our right of having dignity and justice. Never, ever we will give up. And never, ever we will lose hope. Never, ever we will be good victims for any genociders and criminals. And those who are partners with them, Europe, the partner of the genocide. We will keep the hope and strategic optimism, and we are sure We are on the right side of history, and one day we shall overcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Raji. Now I will give directly the floor to Issam Younis, Director of Mezan Center for Human Rights in Gaza. Thank you, Issam. The floor
Thank
is
you,
yours.
Triestino. Morning, and thank you so much for your time being with us here, for the MPs for their very kind words. I have to change what I planned to talk about today, so I have to speak from heart to heart based on what Raji said. You know, since we started our event, at least 12 people were either killed or injured. At least seven of them are children. Time back home is being counted by blood, a loaf of bread, a bill of medicine. I was in one of the events with Gideon Levy years ago, and he started his speech by asking a question: can a woman be half pregnant? And definitely the question is never. A woman either pregnant or not pregnant. It's the same with democracy. Democracy, you cannot be half democracy or quarter democracy. And justice, either justice or lawlessness. There is no half or a quarter justice. It's important to address the situation before the 7th of October. And since here in the heart of Europe, in Brussels, I think the years of what's so-called peace process, the Oslo process, was very, very utilitarian. I mean, how Europe engaged with that part of the world under the pretext of give peace a chance has resulted in transferring the Palestinians from being a dignified nation to communities by the end of the day. Jerusalem was isolated from the rest of the occupied territories. Gazans and West Bankers are not at all allowed to go to the West Bank. North of West Bank was also isolated. South of West Bank and Gaza was put under unprecedented blockade since the year 1967. And the blockade has very serious dynamics. It's not only a collective punishment that is outlawed under international law. There is a process of de-development, as if you're taking Gaza and throw it backward 60 or 70 years. In the year 2012, the Israeli newspaper Haaretz has published, for the first time, revealed about what's so-called the Red Lines document, which was prepared by the different ministers, the army, the Israeli army, that make those calculations of calories that makes human beings alive, and don't take into consideration the different age categories. So what keeps human beings alive was, I think, 2,270 calories, multiplied by the number of people at that time, 1.5 million. It has been translated into food stuff and then into truckloads, just to keep Gazans alive for 17 years. So they keep the nose above the water. People neither can swim nor can breathe, and give peace a chance. And again, give peace a chance. So this fragmentation of the geography and demography and infliction of collective punishment, while there was, they were fighting time to create facts on the ground that are irreversible. The number of settlers on the eve of Oslo were 100 something, and now it exceeded the 750, and very soon we'll have. I mean, the last week, 10,000 apartments in the heart of the occupied territories. In the colonial settlements were approved by this government, and 13 what so-called illegal settlements have been legalized, and then give peace a chance. This is quite important, and let's be frank. We are witnessing the end of international law. The League of Nations was established when victorious met in Versailles and have the charter that lasted for 26 years. It could not stop the invasion of Japan to Manchuria, China, or the attacks of Italy to Ethiopia. And it did not also stop the Holocaust and the war, the Second World War. So it has ended with a new white smoke when the victorious met in San Francisco 45 and have the United Nations Charter. And we naively thought that the war, the Second World War, or the Europe that invested heavily in that it will never again. Violations of international law and basic principles will not be violated. And then we have the Geneva laws, the Geneva Conventions. And since that time until today, we have seen those atrocities, genocides that has been committed. Vietnam, Algeria, the Balkan, Rwanda, and it's been now culminated in Gaza Strip. It's the only crime since 45 that's being live streamed. No one can claim she or he did not see what's going on. I was in Gaza and Raji, we were there during the war. I'm a cancer survivor, so I have to leave because there is no at all medication or any kind of treatment there. So we have seen what does it mean of being there. Such bombardment everywhere. It's a genocide with the full meaning of a word. Starvation is being used as a weapon against human beings. Europe is, what they are waiting for to act. Without acting is an invitation for violence. So Europe is playing with fire with this, with all those months. And it's going on, it's escalating, and statements delivered that the people who are there are human animals. Statement made yesterday by Smotrich that no seed of grain will be allowed to Gaza. No one is immune. Attacks were, civilians have been attacked. And I think the term civilians is not anymore an issue in international law. A civilian in Gaza, either a terrorist or a human shield or potentially a terrorist. And while Europe is watching and seeing this. So all Gazans are either they are in the wrong time and place or terrorists or a human shields, which means that they have the full right to be killed, or the Israelis have the full right to kill them. Again, the time in Gaza is being counted differently, and we are here to push for what might be the last call, the last step, to put an end for that. We naively thought that justice could be prevailed. International law could be used as a way for accountability, because accountability was item 1 on our agenda all the time long. And we shared this with Europe, and they were pushing with this, generously funded our civil society just to go for accountability. And then when the moment of truth comes, Europe behaved differently, and war criminals are being welcomed in Europe. Not only welcomed, I think the ICC is under heavy pressure without being backed by Europe, and we expect the worst is yet to come. That's what we were saying all the way long, that the worst is yet to come as long as Europe continue this engagement with that part of the world. And now it's a harvest of all those sins that has been perpetrated. So it's not only civilians who have been attacked or are being in the eye of the genocide. Those who should be protected, like aid workers, Red Crescent Society staff, journalists, UN premises and UN staff are being intentionally and systematically attacked. And what the Israelis are now doing is to push the Palestinians, while they ordered them to be displaced many, many times. It's not the first time, and now it's the bulk of the community is being all the time ordered to leave their homes and to be displaced. But definitely the whole rationale was to make it very hard. Gaza is not at all a place to live in. So to push them by force or voluntarily, what they are saying. So it's very serious, and we expect Europe to back the orders or the investigation conducted by the ICC, push for the work of the ICJ, because again, the alternative will be very destructive and will definitely jeopardize peace and security in the region. Without acting, again, it's an invitation for violence. And we have to know what's going on there. The pillar of the tent in that part of the world, in the East, is completely different from here. Completely different. And we have to take this into account all the time. If it's not justice, if it's not those principles that we thought that those what unifies us as human beings, every human being has those specific rights. If now Europe will shift from that, then you are inviting people for different options and scenarios, which is very, very, very serious. I'll end here and thank you so much.
So thank you very much, Issam. Now I give the floor to Katherine Gallagher, Senior Attorney at Center for Constitutional Rights. Thank you very much, Katie, for being with us. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Triestino, and thank you to the organizers, to the members of the European Parliament for inviting me here today. And it is truly an honor and a privilege to be on a panel with my heroes, advocates, lifelong advocates for human rights, for Palestinian rights, for self-determination, and for the rule of law. I'm an attorney at the Center for Constitutional Rights in New York, a legal and advocacy organization. As an American, I do not come to speak at the European Parliament lightly, but I do come here today to deliver an urgent message. Those of us who believe in human rights, in international law, in the dignity of every human being, we are on borrowed time. As starkly evident, especially since September 11th attacks, the United States has never been a partner in upholding the so-called rules-based international order. It has always seen it as a two-tiered system, one that exempts it and its allies from any real obligations under the international treaties that it has signed, and from any accountability, even for the most blatant or egregious violations. And this is while it invokes international law, albeit less under Donald Trump than Joe Biden, to suppress others' rights and to serve its own foreign policy and national interest. Nowhere has this been more evident than in Palestine and Israel, and especially with the repeated military assaults on Gaza and the current genocide. This campaign against Palestinians in Gaza is a culmination of US foreign policy towards that region and frankly towards the world. In Europe, too often has been a partner, whether through its actions or its silence. In the short time I have, I will focus on two aspects of the US role in this latest horrific chapter of crimes against Palestinians in Gaza. First, its complicity in the genocide, crimes against humanity, and war crimes. And second, in thwarting justice, whether for its own actions or those of Israel, even as it moves to suppress and criminalize protest at home and encouraging others to do the same, including here in Europe. While Donald Trump's espousal of the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians from Gaza again yesterday was odious and indeed blatantly illegal, Joe Biden and Anthony Blinken also bear great responsibility for what the International Court of Justice has already rightly deemed to be a plausible genocide in Gaza more than 15 months ago, and yet it continues unabated and even escalating. Their actions and failures will be discussed too. Over this devastating period of time, as the suffering and criminality have been broadcast for all of us to see, US has largely stood by the United States and Israel. My hope is that today's panel causes more members of this august body to reconsider their positions and instead to stand with the Palestinians of Gaza. When it comes to the complicity in genocide, this was obviously not the beginning of the United States' stand with Israel. Since its founding, the United States has given more than $250 billion in economic and military assistance to Israel. After October 7th, despite hearing genocidal promises from the voices of senior leadership in Israel, no food, no fuel, no electricity, no water, and calls of genocidal incitement by referring to Palestinians as human animals, as Raji has already said, despite mass starvation, despite constant bombardment, what did President Blinken and Secretary of State, President Biden and Secretary of State Blinken do? They rushed weapons to Israel. Joint direct attack munitions, JDAMs were sent. 2,000-pound bombs were sent and sent again. These bunker-busting bombs were seen to have destroyed entire neighborhoods, buildings where children with their small bodies were just blown apart because of the power of these bombs. Despite knowing the result, the US continued to send those weapons. It opened its stockpile of weapons that are already in Israel, $4.4 billion worth of weapons to Israel right after October 7th. The State Department bypassed Congress to send shipments of weapons that are documented to be used against children and the civilian population in Gaza, brushed those weapons. The United States also, on the diplomatic front, it blocked ceasefire resolution after ceasefire resolution at the Security Council. We've had 3 judgments out of the International Court of Justice, as we heard. Not only the 3 judgments in the South Africa v. Israel case, the genocide case, we also had Nicaragua v. Germany, and the call for all states to stop sending weapons. And we also had the advisory opinion declaring the occupation to be illegal. There are many obligations on third states, including every European state, out of these ICJ judgments. While the United States may disregard the ICJ, Europe has claimed not to. And yet, what has it done? It's continued to treat Israel as a partner, as usual. Some states have expressed skepticism towards the ICJ or even opposed proceedings happening there. And when it comes to weapons, some countries have claimed that they're not going to send weapons to Israel. So what have they done instead? They've sent component parts to the United States. They've essentially laundered these weapons by sending them to companies in the United States to be put in the F-35s, to be put in the JDAM kits, to be used to kill Palestinian children, Palestinian civilians in Gaza. This is just like any other supply chain for Europe. It has due diligence obligations to look and see how are those weapons components being used. Well, they know. Your governments know. And that is why they are bypassing direct sales to launder these weapon components. And that's illegal under international law. It is illegal also under the ICJ judgment in Nicaragua v. Germany. When it comes to thwarting justice, the United States does it at home and does it internationally. I had the privilege to represent Palestinians from Gaza, Palestinian Americans, and Palestinian human rights organizations in a lawsuit filed in November 2023 against Joe Biden and other senior US officials for their failure to prevent genocide, which is an obligation on all genocide convention signatories, as well as for their complicity, their aiding and abetting genocide. What should have been shocking to the entire world and so was so deeply disturbing is that the position of the Biden administration, we're not even at the Trump administration yet, the Biden administration was, even if we are committing genocide, there's nothing that you can do about it, court. So the Biden administration, which said no to the ICC, no to the ICJ, also said no to its own courts. This is absolute lawlessness. And it has likewise continued under Donald Trump. We've had the executive order, as was discussed. We have Karim Khan designated, which makes it illegal under US law for anyone in US jurisdiction, meaning me, for example, who represents victims in the Palestine situation at the ICC, to engage with Karim Khan. I could be criminally prosecuted, civil penalties. For foreign citizens, you can be designated for cooperating with Karim Khan. How has Europe responded to this? There is no blocking statute, as was mentioned. This week marks the 60-day period of time since that executive order went into effect. And the executive order contains a provision that at the 60-day mark, a list should be provided to Donald Trump to lay out who else should be designated. Will that be the court itself? Will that be judges? Will that be, I don't know, members of the European Parliament? Will that be Palestinian civil society organizations? Will that be Palestinian victims of genocide who are seeking justice for the crimes committed against them? Maybe all of the above. And why, in Donald Trump's opinion, should they go ahead and do this? Europe has done nothing. Some statements immediately after the executive order invoking that rules-based international order, but no concrete action. Well, actually, yes, 2 actions. Italy did not turn someone over, a suspect over to the International Criminal Court. It said we don't have to cooperate. And then, of course, we had the visit last week of Netanyahu to Hungary. What did the rest of Europe do? Nothing. Or have said, yeah, it's okay, we don't have to execute those arrest warrants. So this is all just feeding a tyrant. We are in a fascist state in the United States. We have our rights being eroded on a daily basis, and that is why I'm here. We are no longer in a position where incremental steps or negotiations can work. We are in a time where you have to stand up to a tyrant. I say this with respect, but I say this strongly. Europe should know what happens when you appease a dictator. It's only going to be more. We've seen the suppression of dissent in the United States. We've seen student protesters kidnapped off the streets of New York City. My organization has the privilege and honor of representing Mahmoud Khalil, a Palestinian student at Columbia University, who remains in a detention center in Louisiana, while his wife is due to give birth any day. And this is deemed acceptable by Donald Trump and too many people in positions of power in the United States. Anti-Semitism is being weaponized in the United States. Anti-Semitism is real, but what the Trump administration and the Biden administration before it did was it has conflated anti-Israel political positions with anti-Semitism. You must be able to express opposition to foreign policy. You must be able to express political dissent. And right now that is not only being suppressed, but it is being punished and criminalized. And this should serve as a warning to Europe also. In recent days, at least, we have had senior Jewish members of Congress speak out about the dangers of adopting the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism, saying that this is actually going to be very dangerous for the Jewish population in the United States and elsewhere. We have President Trump, who in Charlottesville, Virginia, when people were marching with tiki torches saying Jews will not replace us, we had this man say that there are good people on both sides of that protest, calling those anti-Semitic expressions good people, voiced by good people. He is not the person to speak on what anti-Semitism is, but he is weaponizing that now to further his campaign against Palestinians and against human rights and against the rule of law. So we need action by Europe now to stop the Trump administration before it does what it promised yesterday, to turn Gaza into a beach resort without Palestinians. So please hear this plea and take action now before it's too late for Palestine and for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Katie. We have 4 minutes just to take a couple of questions. Please be very brief and also in the answers, not only in the questions, and then we will conclude. So, is there anyone? Okay, so if not, I don't see any hands. I will give directly the floor back to our MPs, thanking them again for hosting and organizing this event. Danilo Della Valle. Ah, sorry, is there anyone? Did anyone raise their hand?
Maybe I was thinking maybe we can also share the floor with the other MPs that are in the room. So maybe if you want to say something, or Marta. Okay, Marta Schiller.
My name is Ayan O'Riordan. I'm from Ireland. I'm a Dublin MEP. I've just been taking notes of what you said. It's a very distressing morning to listen to what's been said, Mr. Sourani. We're not looking for political favors. We have law. We want law applied. We cannot be good victims for anyone. We cannot be stones in the valley. Europe is a partner of genocide. One day we shall overcome, which resonates very strongly with me as an Irish person. Mr. Younis, we are witnessing the end of international law. It's the only crime that's being live streamed. Europe without acting is an invitation for violence. War criminals are being welcomed in Europe, and the worst is yet to come. It feels like you said that there is hope, but it feels like there is none if we are witnessing the end of international law. And for me, as a new member of this Parliament, we see the massive discrepancy between the collective view of the situation in Ukraine versus this live streaming of a genocide on our watch. And it's repulsive. And it feels as if these very institutions and the talk of democracy and peace and everything that these institutions were founded to prevent in the 1950s and 40s is crumbling in front of our very eyes. So I can only, as somebody who's a European, apologize for what we are not doing. But every time we had Kalakalis in front of us there last week, and we asked her about the association agreement with Israel, and she said, ending the agreement will not save one Palestinian life. But I feel that Palestinian children are dying because of a European guilt complex about the Holocaust. And that is completely unfair.
Thank you very much. Okay, sì, perfect. We still have a few minutes left. So if Raji, Sam, or Katie want to add something, Raji, do you want to add something? There is a question, I see. Ah, okay, fine. Sorry, let's take the question.
Good morning, everyone. I don't have a question, but rather so my name is Nermin, I'm a PhD student, and I'm actually active with a group of researchers and activists from Germany. And we have been basically doing research projects that have been involved with Israeli institutions that has to do with military projects that are funded by the EU. And basically, I hear everything that has been said, and it's a very, very critical moment, only for the people who are sort of trying to stop this. And I think my request to the MEPs is to protect the people that are trying to fight against it, because also Germany is in a Trump style coming for those activists. It's not I'm not saying this as an exaggeration. I'm saying this as a person who is involved with these people. And I see this that they're coming not only, I think they're only coming for 2 Irish activists at the moment, which have not been this instrumentalization of anti-Semitism is really getting out of hand in Germany. So I do not know how you would deal with this with your German MEPs or something like this. But I think my requests, which I have actually put them in a document, I would love if I can talk to you about this later on if you have time. But if not, there are EU Horizon funded projects that are right now being within this university setting, which is you have in Israeli universities, but you have also EU institutions. But our university wouldn't even want us to have access to the guidelines, the ethical guidelines. And I'm my feeling is if we go within these, we would see that there are also according to the ICG opinion, there would be basically they would be against many things from international. So we would need to better organize within this, because if we cut the funding from these projects, and the institution and our university maybe would protect their academics, they would protect their students that are being right now vocal about the genocide. And we need to go within these smaller settings, starting from this. Sorry, I'm speaking fast, but I don't want to take a lot of time from other people, and we really need to doing something more about this. The other thing, academic freedom in Europe is really under attack. And I'm not really exaggerating, but everything that had to be said in our university, where we have talked about why would you have this project, where we have really big ethical question regarding even surveillance in the occupied territories. So yeah. This was just a summary. We need to protect the people that are right now trying to stop this on an activist level, but also on an academic freedom one, because at one point this will be over, but we will need the evidence for it. Thank you for everyone. I really enjoyed listening to you, and I'm sorry we cannot do more.
Thank you very much. Please.
Thank you. I'm Alexis de Soif, Vice President of the FIDH, the International Federation for Human Rights. And I'm very happy to be here to listen to the directors of 2 of our member organizations, Mezan and the PCHR. Thank you, Issam and Raji. I think, and I would like to thank the members of Parliament, of the European Parliament that are present. And like Raji says, shame on Europe and shame on the members of Parliament that are not present here today, because we always criticize the members of Parliament, the presence, but we should thank them and criticize all the absence. and the European Parliament is very weak. There is no reaction. They have to control the Commission. We see von der Leyen, the President of the Commission, run to Jerusalem and Tel Aviv to bring the unconditional support of Europe to this criminal government, far-right government of Netanyahu, without any mandate. Who in the European Parliament is protesting against that? I'm asking the question. I'm from Brussels. I'm ashamed by the European Parliament in Brussels, I must confess. These are very hard words. We are here in the center of the democracy of Europe, and we are losing all our credibility as European institutions with these double standards, considering Ukraine and Russia and Palestine, Israel on the other side. Which credibility we still have? The last point I want to say is that we speak a lot about the ICJ and the ICC, and of course it's important that all the European countries, and it's one of the obligations of the European countries, is to recognize and to collaborate with the ICC. Hungary, forget that. We expect reactions from the European Parliament to say to Hungary, how can you stay member of the European Union if you deny what you accepted when you joined the European Union is to respect the International Criminal Court. And besides that, we should also consider that we have Europeans that are fighting in the IDF and that are committing war crimes and participating to a genocide. What do we do as European countries for all these binationals that are serving and committing these crimes in Gaza today and in the West Bank in the Israeli army? We can intervene in front of our national courts, and we should do that, but there must also be a political answer on this participation in the genocide.
Thank you very much. I will give the floor to Raji for, and then we move to the conclusions. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the question. Hard times pushes either or. Giving up or stand for the challenge. I think we have no right to give up. None of us. We are in Gaza or in Brussels or in New York. This is the war of the free, committed people who share values, standards, concepts. I mean, we cannot say there is civilized war and uncivilized war, the third countries and the first countries. These values are human values shared by all of us. When we speak about defending the notion of rule of law, the alternative, the rule of jungle. Can we accept that? This is happening now in Gaza. Fair enough. But I think the symptoms which we are having right now, when President Clinton say, I will annex Greenland. I want it. We need it for our national security. Why Canada don't become the 51st state of the United States? Maybe, I mean, tomorrow he would say, as he spoke about, I want Gaza to be Little Rivera for me. I mean, he might say, well, I mean, there is a part in Greece or in France or in Sweden. I would love to have it. This is, I mean, the rule of jungle. Unfortunately, we used to know the left, the leftist, the progressive, in the word, you know, standing for the just, fair, right causes. Vietnam, South Africa, Palestine. Now, there is a genocide going on. and their coalition basically with Bibi, with Israel. And the right wing, which having these genuine ideas of Israel and Trump, just gaining more and more grounds. And you know, I don't want to educate you about that, where Europe will be in 15 years politically, where EU will be in 15 years regarding the right wing. So you have to make difference. You make distinction between right and left for those who are fighting for international law, international humanitarian law, human rights, for those who are fighting for rule of law against what's coming, dictatorship, fascism, and colonial mentality prevailing once and again in its most ugly way by supporting this genocide. So we have no choice but to stand for a challenge. And to stand for a challenge, you have to have the optimism. You are defending just fair right cause, and you are in the right side of history.
Thank you very much, Raji. Issam, just 30 seconds because we have to conclude, and then directly we go to Danilo Della Valle and Cecilia Strada for the conclusions. Thank you.
I'll talk about the how Palestinians back home are perceiving Europe at the moment. It reminds me of a joke that when Syrians were in Lebanon, Syrians were saying that the Lebanese were saying that the Syrians want to fight the Israelis until the last Lebanese, and now how Europe is reacting to genocide, the killings of children, live streamed on daily basis, is by promoting relations with the PA, more allocations for the PA. This is important, but it's a way to escape from legal and moral obligations. Period. I think Europe should behave differently. There is an advisory opinion that made things clear. Occupation is illegal, should be ended. Settlements are illegal. Settlements should be evacuated. As simple as that. And the third state parties like Europe should act individually and collectively to put an end for these atrocities. We are not an odd in history. We are not an exception. We are part of the issue of international law. That's why I think it's a moment to act. Otherwise, it will be very late and very destructive with its dynamics on the region. Thank you.
Please, thank you.
I want to say thank you to everyone for the contribution. Thank you for the maps presented here. Thank you to Andrus from Non-Attached and Rudy Kennes from the left to be here with us. And I think it's important to clarify that the future of Palestine must be decided by the Palestinians themselves, that have the right to be treated as human. And I think just one thing about international law. It's very sad to know that today the international law is used basically for political purposes, no? Targeting countries that choose to not support US foreign policy. And it's very sad because how many times Western didn't respect international law? In Belgrade, for example. So I want to say thank you to everyone, and thank you to be here.
Brief technical information. Those of you who has the visitor badge, and maybe quite difficult to find the exit, but you can follow our colleagues, and they will lead you to the exit. And yeah, really, thank you. Me as a colleague, I can only apologize, and I can only feel ashamed when I hear these things. But no, not only feel ashamed. There's something else that we need to do and go on working and be even more with even more determination. Because if you don't give up, then of course we can't give up, and we must increase the number and the ways in which we put pressure on the Commission, on the Parliament, on the public opinion, on our member states to end this shame, because each one of us will pay, not only the Palestinian, as you said, this is about the war population, this is about which side of history are we deciding to stand. And it should not be so difficult for Europe to decide which part to stand in. It is, but thank you so much for everything that you do, and we are with you, and we always be. Thank you very much.